My name is Kristen. I also go by Ms.Filmingo, and welcome to today's video. Today, I'm happy to share my interview with director Nicholas Ma, who is behind the film Leap of Faith, along with Pastor Michael Gulker, who is the president of the Colossian Forum. Now, this is a documentary that's going to hit theaters nationwide beginning October 4th. Now, before we jump into the interview, let me give you all a quick rundown of the film. 12 diverse Christian leaders find hope and fellowship at a series of boundary-breaking retreats in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Brought together by Michael Gulker of the Colossian Forum, 5 women and 7 men struggle with some of today's most contentious issues. The divisions between them become apparent and test both their common belief in the universal importance of love and kindness and the bonds they build over the course of a year. So now that you all know a little bit about the film, let's go cut to my interview with Nicholas and Michael. I must say congratulations on all the hard work on this documentary. It was very fascinating.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, so I gotta ask, what made you want to tell this story, Nicholas?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Morgan and I had made a film 6 years ago called Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Yes.
For years. And at the end of every screening, people would say, where are the Fred Rogers of today? And it made me really sad because it was said with this kind of wistfulness, as if that era had gone. And,
Right.
we had to say goodbye to it. And here we are in this strange, new, sad world. And so I kept hunting for an answer to that question. And when I read about Michael's work, bringing congregations together across difference, not saying we all have to agree, but saying there are things that we can agree on that can bring us together, I thought, that's interesting. That reminds me so much of Fred. And of course, Fred having been a Presbyterian minister,
Yeah.
These ideas are coming from the same as Michael would say, the same moral resources, the same wellspring. And I just was curious. And so Michael and I started a conversation. And in a lot of ways, this movie, Leap of Faith, is the story of, 12 pastors and Michael, all trying to be the Fred Rogers of today in their own way. And I think in many ways, the film is my answer to that question.
Right.
Yeah, you know what? There are people trying. It is as hard as we think it is, but it's infinitely more beautiful than the alternative, and it's worth it.
I could see that, especially in you, Michael, looking at like a Fred Rogers type. I get this warm feel after watching the film with you and getting acceptance from many of those around you. How did you get to connect with Nicholas, Michael?
Well, Nicholas read an article in the Wall Street Journal about our work and just sent an email, and we just started having conversations. And I mean, honestly, it's interesting that you were talking about the Fred Rogers piece, because that was the piece that I told the pastors about when I was trying to recruit them. Just because they're like, we're not doing this on film. And the Fred Rogers there was a kind of there was a recognition of, well, they identified and they wanted to be, and they recognized that this is if Nicholas and Morgan are making these kinds of films, then maybe it'd be something we want to do.
Now, what I find really great is that you are going to partner up with various different organizations for different types of screenings. And what is the main goal you hope audiences take away from this entire viewing experience?
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I'll give my answer, and then I'm sure Michael will have a similar, an interesting perspective as well. I think right now we live in a world where people try to tell us that we're in a 50-50 country. And I think that's just hogwash.
Yeah.
I think we're in an 80-20 country where 80% of us want to live together and are frustrated either with each other or with themselves that it's not easier. And 20% of us maybe are sharpening our knives, but I think we can argue about where that 20% is, but 80% of us really want something different. And I think that sometimes we need to see that it's possible in order to believe that it might be possible for us.
Right.
And there is as Michael would say, there's sort of a vicarious experience of seeing people do something really hard together and come out of the other side with something really beautiful that makes you think, gosh, maybe I can try to do something really hard in my life, and maybe that beauty is possible for me too.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I would double down on all of that. I think the most difficult part about this work often is that people can't imagine it. They can't imagine it going well. And so while our work has always been very private, we know that when people experience this kind of transformation, it's lasting, and it gives them hope, and it gives them courage. And the prospect of capturing that on film to be able to share it was well, I mean, it got a whole bunch of us to spend 2 years working on it together. And so just that hope, because I think pastors experience this kind of work in their pastoral work all the time. They're in the trenches. They are the Fred Rogers, right? They're doing this work, and they see these beautiful things happening, but the world doesn't see them, and they need to. And so being able to be a part of something as beautiful as we were, and to know that that might inspire other people to have courage to take one step towards each other, was all the motivation we needed.
Michael, did you get used to having the cameras all around you for this whole project for the documentary?
No. No. I mean, in a way, when there were times when we were engaged with each other that you would forget the cameras, right? Because you're just paying attention to the person in front of you. So maybe I could say yes, when we were together. I think oftentimes we would do one-on-one shoots afterwards, and I would be very aware of the camera. But even then, I guess it became me and you. Yeah, that's not a very clear answer. Sometimes.
No, it's okay.
How about that? Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I forgot the cameras when I was in tune enough with the person in front of me, which happened fairly often now that I think about it.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing. I think that the cameras kind of, what they do is they demand vulnerability.
I was just going to say that because everybody in this film gets very, very vulnerable and very personal, which I found to be very fascinating for these reverends and pastors.
Exactly. I'm so glad that that was your experience, because it was certainly my experience sort of observing it in person, and was their experience living through it. And I think those are those moments where you realize, immediately afterwards, you're like, oh gosh, that was on camera. Is that going to be okay? And all of that. And
yeah,
you also realize, one of the only things that I can say is, as a filmmaker, we are incredibly generous to people that are vulnerable on screen.
Yeah,
right.
That's very true.
We see vulnerability. We say, we know how hard that is.
Mm-hmm.
We know how hard that is. And we give people a lot of birth and a lot of grace when they're vulnerable.
Yeah, you're very right with that. And was there a time where maybe not just you, Nicholas, but maybe both of you, where someone was in the group that said something that's very controversial that you didn't agree, where it made you just want to get up and walk away because you're like, we live in a world where views are very different. There's a wide variety of pastors and, different views going on that we see in the film. Where you both maybe had to both step away and just be like, okay, this was too much because somebody said something that was like way too much for me?
We're going to have different answers on this question.
Yeah. No, I love that.
I think there were a number of times where people said things that made me very angry. Yeah. I don't know that I thought this is too much, because all of the people I knew and loved, and I knew that even when they were saying things that made me very angry, they were saying them from a place that I trusted, even if I might strongly disagree with. But there were a lot of those moments, and there were a lot of those moments, throughout the project, and we still have them, quite frankly. I think there's no way to be vulnerable with people that are very different from you that doesn't lead to, some skinned up knees and some hurt feelings, but that's part of the project. And I've been moved by people's willingness to lean into those conversations after things have gone sideways.
Yeah, I mean, Michael's done this work for a long time, so I think Michael, who, in some, even if it wasn't clear in the moment, I always felt like there was some ballast in him that said, okay, let's keep going. There were definitely moments where I was like, is that going to be possible? Are we going to be able to keep going, and got a little panicky, and I thought to myself, oh gosh, maybe this is the end of, maybe the movie has a really, really dark ending, and that is okay too, because that's what, you film what you find.
Yeah, we had that conversation.
Yeah, you can't know how it's going to end. But I think part of what is beautiful is the pastor's ability to have confidence that there's something on the other side of pain. And, I think everyone has to be careful, right? It's like, there's some pain that there's pain in my life that I'm not ready to tackle, and that's fine,
Yeah.
But when you are ready to tackle it, there is something on the other side of it. And I think all these pastors gave me the confidence to think that that might be true in my life too.
Now, is there anything that you both learned from this whole experience?
Oh, goodness. Where to begin? Wow. I probably the two, I've got two main things. One would be what I learned from Nicholas, which is I have this grammar, this Christian grammar for how to live in openness and vulnerability to the world. And I never expected us to be exclusive in that ability, but I didn't have another imagination for it. And working with Nicholas throughout this project, and his vulnerability and receptivity and openness and willingness to push through his own hurts. I mean, they were back and forth between the two of us. I think that was a remarkable experience for me to work with somebody outside my Christian bubble and in really in profound ways, and just to be loved so faithfully by somebody outside my bubble was really remarkable. And I would say another major learning was, and this comes through in the storyline. In this work, I've always thought that I had to kind of not say what my position was on a topic in order to create space. And obviously over the course of the film, I've changed my perspective on that. That I actually think if we're going to hold ourselves and the positions we hold accountable to love in God and love in neighbor, we have to be able to say what those are so that people can hold us accountable. And so that was an enormous shift for me in how I relate and in how I lead.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love hearing that. What about you, Nicholas?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say almost verbatim the same thing to Michael, right? That this film, in the small and in the very big, is about having the courage to be loved by someone who is different than you, right? And have the courage to believe that you can love them too.
Right.
And that was true in Michael and my relationship. That was true in my relationships with the pastors' relationships with each other. And, you sort of realize, oh, wow, that is a question that we all have to be asking ourselves, and take that leap of faith in our relationships. I think the other has been sort of an evolution in my mind of the word faith, right? I think we live in a moment where we talk about people of faith and people of science as if somehow those are two separate tribes and they should be at war with each other. And I think faith is something that is much bigger and is part of the human condition, right? Whether it's faith in science, faith in God, faith in humanity, faith in each other, faith in the possible. I think that if we embrace faith, we embrace risk, we embrace vulnerability, and we embrace a future that's more beautiful than the present that we live in now.
Oh, I love hearing that. But I got to wrap it up and just say thank you so much for your time. It was such a great honor to speak with both of you. So that's going to wrap up my interview. I hope you all really enjoyed it. And be sure to check out the documentary Leap of Faith, opening in theaters starting October 4th. So thanks for joining me on today's video. Be sure to like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe to the channel. I can't wait to bring you all more videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!